Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and yes, Steve, once again, we're going to have spoilers in this video from part 2 in the Kenobi series. It's going to be a relatively minor spoiler, but if you guys don't want to be spoiled, here's my fair warning for you. Okay, so in our last video, I talked about the biggest question we all had after watching the first 2 parts of Kenobi, and that's why is Grand Inquisitor getting stabbed by Reva? Because, you know, he's in the Rebel series years later, alive. We had a bunch of different theories, including the fact that maybe he survived this incident, or maybe his clones. I really like the comment from one of you guys that said basically he did get injured here, and because of his injury, he lost weight in his face, which is why he went from a round face to more of a pointy looking face. Which we see in the Rebels series. Good job, guys. If you want to check out that video, we'll link it or something. It'll be somewhere. Anyway, in this video, what I want to talk about is the scene right before Reva stabs the Grand Inquisitor. She says the following while hunting for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You didn't know. He's alive, Obi-Wan. Anakin Skywalker is alive.
So for all of you out there who aren't huge Star Wars nerds like I am, why is this a big deal? Well, let me give you an example. Let's fast forward almost 40 years later. The Empire is gone and the Emperor has yet to return, and Princess General Leia is a mother and a senator running for the first senator position, which is kind of like the president of the New Republic, or at least the president of the Senate. In the middle of her campaign, the opposition party reveals that she is the daughter of Vader. They actually start calling her Lady Vader. Star Wars fans might ask themselves, well, why is this a big deal? We all know about this.
The Force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it. My sister has it.
Well, even though Darth Vader was vindicated sort of at the end of the war, he was still kind of like the Hermann Göring to Palpatine's Hitler. As in, most of the galaxy really saw him as a terrible, evil individual, and if you're associated to him, it could be a huge political liability, which is why Leia never told anyone, including her own son. During this time period, the New Republic was in a period of political stagnation because there was, peace for many years. There was a 2-party system, and basically nothing was getting done, and it was just political fighting. It was one party versus another, rather than both sides trying to figure out how to run the galaxy properly. I know it sounds a lot like what's going on right now. It's a little too close to home. And so without anything real to fight about, Leia's opposition was more than willing to smear her as a neo-imperial, despite all she did for the galaxy. It's really messed up if you think about it. I mean, this is ultimately why she has to leave politics and join the resistance. Ben Solo was also really shocked by this revelation, and he got a lot of hate for being the grandson of Darth Vader, which is probably why when he did do his teenage rebellion, he embraced Vader and went to the dark side. You gotta love Star Wars and how, nuanced everything is. I mean, you have the selfish actions of some political leaders creating a butterfly effect, which essentially launches the entire galaxy into war and kills freaking Han Solo. Anyway, the key thing before we get too off track is, most of the galaxy had no idea who Leia's parents were, and they also had no idea who Darth Vader was. They probably also had no idea that Leia kissed her brother and potentially liked it. We can't have bloody and gritty battles in this sci-fi universe, but I guess the gateway to incest, kissing your sister, is okay. I see what you're going for, Star Wars. And so anyway, no one is supposed to know that Anakin is Darth Vader. We're not sure the official reason why Palpatine decides to hide this information. It could be because he doesn't want Vader to be reminded of his past. It could also be that Palpatine just purged all the Jedi and doesn't want anyone to know that his main enforcer is a former Jedi. Or maybe it's just branding. Having mysterious black armor-clad enforcer is terrifying. I mean, some people thought he was more machine than man. That's kind of what's alluded to in the Tarkin novel. Clearly, from what we've seen, the Grand Inquisitor has no idea who Anakin is, despite, working with him when they were both Jedi. And none of the other Inquisitors seem to understand who he is either. Vader also clearly wants to keep this a secret. When Joe Castanu revealed his identity to a bunch of shock troopers, they all suffered a terrible accident where they fell out of their dropship, which they were securely fastened to. So what makes Reva so special in this case? How does she know?
We will find you!
Well, I have a pretty good theory here, guys. First of all, I know Reva's really annoying. She's bloodthirsty, she's trying to kill everyone in her path. She doesn't listen to anyone, including Han, but he needs to stop whispering, honestly.
You are too impulsive.
And Mr. Roundhead, Grand Inquisitor, is also kind of frumpy. No one really respects him, I feel like. But we have to remember, guys, this is how Sith are supposed to behave. They're super ambitious and psychopaths that will stop at nothing to gain power. It's literally written into their code. Now, obviously, the Inquisitors are not the Sith, and they're actually supposed to be a bit more subdued and generally terrified of things, because Vader is essentially their boss, and he spars with them on the reg, and he's cut off many of their limbs. But Reva seems to share a very special relationship with Vader. Now, for those of you familiar with what Vader was going through during his transition to the dark side, you'll know that the Anakin Skywalker we all knew inside of him had mostly died. But because Anakin Skywalker was larger than life, bits and pieces of him are still left in Vader's personality, primarily the parts concerning Padme and his childhood. You see, my theory is this: the other Inquisitors really seem to hate Reva. Not because she's angry and trying to kill everyone and endangering their mission, but because she's different.
Whatever power you are craving, it will not change what you are.
And what is that?
The least of us.
She's not a former Jedi. She's actually a street urchin, and by the sounds of it, an orphan. You know who else was picked on a lot by an organization who saw him as an outsider and very different to them? A young Anakin Skywalker. When he was a young Padawan, the other Jedi made slave jokes at his expense. So much for the Jedi being like the paragon of virtue in the Republic, right? Plus, Anakin had angry-ass Samuel L. Windu grilling him constantly. Literally in every novel I've read that features Anakin during the stage in his life, he's just minding his own business, and he looks over and Mace is just like staring him down as if he knows Anakin's gonna cut his arm off one day, and he's thinking about killing Anakin before that day arrives. And so Anakin might see a lot of himself in Reva. And he's not pitying her. He's not, growing closer to her because he wants to help her out, because he feels bad for her. Instead, he understands what it means to be an outlier, an outcast. And he also understands that individuals like this have to go through a lot more hardship to essentially get the same things as everyone else. And because she'll work harder, she has a bigger chip on her shoulder, she'll be angrier. And we all know what makes a Sith more powerful. It's emotions like this. So Anakin is investing in Reva because he sees a lot of potential in her, because she's really pissed off, and the Sith are really powerful when they get pissed off. And from a cultural perspective, it was quite common for the Sith to have their favorites. I mean, the Sith are completely insane as an organization. They're extremely hard to manage as well, especially when they group together. It's just complete chaos. The word culture and vibe here is very similar to what we would see in one of those hedge funds which created the subprime mortgage crisis all those years back. Everyone is on speed, everyone is gunning for each other and trying to seize power for themselves. And this kind of behavior is encouraged from the boss man at the top.
Good, Anakin, good.
Even though Palpatine is supposed to be a rule of two Sith, he loved nothing more than having multiple underlings fight each other to be his right-hand man. And Vader, as we've seen with Starkiller and other enforcers, also had his own favorites. And I think the fact that Reva knows who he is a great sign that she might be Anakin's favorite. You guys still remember what Vader did to all those clones who found out about his real identity, right? Now, we have to remember that the Inquisitors had a messy chain of command. The Grand Inquisitor was technically in charge of things, and he directly reported to Palpatine. But at the same time, Darth Vader would train the Inquisitors and sometimes direct the Grand Inquisitor as well. We also know that Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine were constantly trying to kill each other, so there's so much drama within this organization. In Kenobi, the Inquisitors officially aren't completely focused on hunting down Kenobi. That's what Vader wants. They're actually just after smaller fish, because apparently Kenobi has done a great job at hiding. I think Reva is after Kenobi not only because of her personal ambition, but because of her close ties to Vader and because she knows what he means to him. If you guys have read any of the comics about Anakin Skywalker recovering after his lava dip on Mustafar, you'll know he thought about one thing, and that was getting revenge over Obi-Wan Kenobi. I would say that Vader's greatest motivation and drive post-Rise of New Order is to find and kill Kenobi. I mean, sure, we can talk about how he's probably just trying to ease the pain of losing Padme to an exploded heart, but the point is, Reva is really close to Vader. She understands that finding Kenobi will earn her endless gold stars from Vader, and potentially even an apprenticeship. So who else knows that Vader is Anakin? Well, over the years, actually quite a few people. Most of them knew Anakin before the Empire and were able to recognize some of his old character traits in Darth Vader. A potential foreshadowing of his return to his old form at the end of Episode 6, perhaps. Anyway, you have individuals like Thrawn, who worked with Anakin both during the Clone Wars and also during the Imperial era. You have individuals like Wilhuff Tarkin, who was impressed by Anakin when he rescued him from the Citadel prison during the Clone Wars. And then later on, when Wilhuff Tarkin becomes a Moff, when he meets Vader for the first time, he's an inkling that this is the same exact Jedi he had met during the Clone Wars. Ahsoka Tano definitely knew that Anakin was Vader, especially after she cracked his mask open.
Ahsoka.
Anakin.
Maul, Sidious's former apprentice, also had a good read on the situation, not because of his limited encounters with Anakin, but because he understood how the Emperor operated. Jocasta Nu, as stated before, knew about it as well. She had access to Anakin's medical records. The Jedi Padawan Farron Barr saw the same recording of Anakin slaughtering younglings as did Obi-Wan and Yoda. Oh, and Bail Organa and Breha probably also knew as well, because they took Leia in and they knew she was the daughter of Padme Amidala. It seems like a lot of people, but it's actually not a lot of people. We have to remember, as fans, we know everything. But in universe, I mean, most people didn't even know that Darth Sidious was, or Palpatine was Darth Sidious and a Sith Lord. So most people had no idea who Darth Vader was. Anyway, going forward, I hope we see more backstory and flashbacks for Reva, because she's clearly a main character here, but without proper fleshing out of that character, fans won't really understand why she is the way she is, and this is why a lot of fans seem to hate her right now. Of course, I'm still optimistic about the series. I'm going to give them a few more episodes to flesh things out and see which direction the show is going. Anyway, guys, let me know in the comment section below what you think about my theory on Reva. And as usual, thanks for joining us today. My name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy.